Hello everybody, James Bouligny here for Live Daily News. Today we don't have an interview, but Paul Harris and I talk about our 11-man team for the All-COVER1 team. We got our MVPs, our defensive MVPs, and of course offensive defense, and some honorable mentions, utility backs. Before we get into it though, here's a quick word from Jay Chandler.
It's hard to believe how reckless some people can be and how hard they fight against real victims. You need a partner who consistently beats the Giants and who will never, ever flinch.
Welcome back everybody, this is James Bouligny with Cover1. This is our All-COVER1 team. I have my co-host with me, Paul Harris. Paul, how are we doing today?
Doing good, James. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Man, let's just get right into... Let's get into the superlatives first. Let's talk about MVP, and we'll go all the way through Coach of the Year, Co-Coach of the Year. Talk about our MVP, Landon York, quarterback for the Wall Hawks.
All right. Yeah, I think the big thing is, Wall moving to the spread offense. Everybody expected that Wall would still be Wall. They'd still be a great team, but I don't think anybody could have thought they would just take off and just look like they've been running the spread offense for years, He was incredible. Almost 3,800 passing yards, only 7 picks the whole year.
He only got sacked once. He only got sacked one time through all, 14 games?
15 games,
15 games, and that was against Gunter, and that was the last game of the year. And I kind of brought it up to Coach Slaughter out there when we were at one of the times I went out there throughout the year. And I said, man, you looked at the front half of your non-district schedule, and you had Monahans and Idalou and Brownwood and Mason. And you're looking at that, and you're like, man, you come out of those first 5 games, 2-3, 3-2, you're still sitting pretty, And I don't think anybody expected them to be, lose 1 game throughout the regular season?
Right, only Brownwood tripped them up. And again, that was just week 2, so if there were any growing pains, they were still kind of working those out in those first couple weeks. But they opened with Mason, Brownwood, Jim Ned. Tough defenses, And so just incredible. The offensive line, you can't say enough about them allowing 1 sack the whole year. It's just unbelievable. And 3 of their linemen, deservedly so, are on our All-COVER1 team.
I know we're talking about MVP, and Landon York is our MVP, but it's hard to not talk about the rest of the offense. He had great receivers out there. He had good backfield with him, and he had great defense out there too, helping him as well.
Yeah, there's a reason that Wall was the best team in our area, and it's because they did it on every single side of the ball, offense, defense, special teams. Probably maybe the best weapon in the whole area with Briggs Jones was what he was, a receiver, a returner. You could hand him the ball in the backfield. He intercepted passes as a DB. He really did it all. They got Thomas Lianos at running back. Great receivers in addition to Briggs Jones. Evan Bailey, Reed Robertson, Kellen Oliver. So just loaded on offense, and then the defense, just ridiculous, especially up front. You got Brylan White, on the D-line, just creating havoc. And, Ethan Mickelwitz at linebacker. So, all 3 levels. Then you got one of the best defensive minds we got in West Texas, Craig Slaughter, running the defense. That's why they were so good. And really just maybe 10, 11 points away from winning the state title. They would have got past Gunter.
Yeah, I really think that they would have beat Woodville had they gotten to state. While we're talking about Wall, though, you brought up Brylan White, you brought up Ethan Mickelwitz. They're our co-defensive players of the year this year. This one kind of caused, I was talking about Brylan White, you were talking about Ethan Mickelwitz, and Slaughter said Mickelwitz is the guy that made the defense go, but Brylan White, man, at that Gunter game, he just influenced the game so much. He had 46 quarterback pressures throughout the year, which is insane.
Right. And to me, it all starts up front,
Right.
With the D linemen, the pressure they were getting. And I saw them a couple times, and, they were just blowing up one player after another. I truly felt sorry for some of the offensive lines they had to play.
I don't.
Well, but then Mickelwitz, just sideline to sideline making tackles. He was just a missile out there, So it's really hard to pick between 2 guys like that. They were both so important to the best defense in the area. And so, what the heck, anybody would love to have them as a cornerstone for their defense.
It's our list. We can do what we can talk about what we want to talk about, and let's just go ahead and talk about the coach of the year, Craig Slaughter, was one of our coaches of the year, and I think deservedly so. Yeah, we knew Wall was going to have a good team, but to pick it up where they picked it up and to act like they never changed offense, to go from a run-heavy offense to the spread like they did. I mean, and his coaching staff as well. You know, I think Launderholm did an incredible job for him.
It's really a coaching staff award in a lot of ways too, right? Because the offensive coaching staff had their own gigantic challenge switching to the spread, so it's a nod to the entire coaching staff of Wall. And then same with Junction, Scott Freeman and his guys sharing that award with everything Junction did. We expected them to be good heading into the season, but they still did.
They returned everybody.
They did, and they were just like Wall. They were awesome on all sides of the ball, So everything they did. I mean, great defense. The defense got overshadowed. The offense scored in 44 a game. The defense only allowed 12 a game. They won first district title 21 years, best playoff run in 15 years, and they just ran into Shiner in the regional final. Kind of just like Wall, just ran into one of the best teams in the state, and that's what it was. But
yeah, Shiner lost at state, but they were still at state, and Gunter won state. So it's not like the Contra Valley, put out a bunch of nobodies. Hey, they went 4 rounds deep.
Yeah, they went 4 rounds deep.
4 rounds deep. So,
and we had some great seasons around here with Reagan County winning its first district title in 31 years. There's a lot of years that Kyle Brown could have been our coach of the year. Cristobal had a great finish, taking second place. I didn't see that coming, and great job by them. There were some great coaching performances. Heck, Mark Smith for Central. Central had a huge improvement. I mean, they weren't that far away at all from being in the playoffs. Maybe he'd have been in the running. But I feel good with who we had.
You can look at the final result, look at the schedule and whatever you want and the wins and losses, but he closed the gap on all of those games and made Central competitive. And if you look at one-score games and flip them, it's a much different story.
Right. And that's the thing, just trying to get the most out of your team, what you got, trying to take them from where they were and get them better, And so a lot of coaches in the area did a great job, and it wasn't easy to just pick these two, but ultimately, golly, look what they did. So
yeah, well, let's talk about our offensive player of the year, Sutton Solario.
Yeah, Mason. What can you say? 2,300 rushing yards,
monster numbers, man.
Yeah, every time I think he averaged over a first down every time he touched the ball. And again, Mason's a great team. They had all 5 of their linemen coming back, but he was just such a home run hitter with his speed and power, and just. A lot of times they had a great running offense over the years, but this guy, could just take it to the house on any play. Just huge numbers for them.
Yeah, and then our newcomer of the year, kid I was really proud of. I went to their playoff game. Liam Yancey, sophomore for Miles, stepped in, and as a sophomore, you stepped in and you had a bunch of seniors around you that you're the guy now, and he really took it on. I really feel like he took it. But he had 34 touchdowns, 36 touchdowns.
And great completion percentage too.
Right.
I think almost 65% of his passes, something like that. So just stepped in and they needed. Losing Haven Book, that's a huge loss. And so a lot of pressure on him. As a team with high expectations, steps in and just had a great year. And it looks like they got a bright future. Now they're losing all these seniors, but now he'll be the leader next year.
Well, and he's got a year of experience under his belt. Now he is the guy now. You could say Cooper Ellison maybe, or Tevin Mead and all these other guys maybe, but Liam stepped up and said, "Hey, I'm going to be the guy," and I appreciate that. That just shows who he is as a student athlete.
Right.
It really does. Before we go any further, though, we are going to thank our sponsor, Whataburger.
Whataburger's Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich is back.
Chicken strips. Chicken strips. Chicken strips.
Ranch. Buffalo Monterey Jack cheese.
The Whataburger Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich, a beautiful masterpiece.
All right, Paul. Let's talk about the actual teams now. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Who are some of the quarterbacks we had on this list?
Well, we have both of our city kids in there, and both of them deservedly so. Squeak English for Central, really carried that team again, almost 1,000 yards rushing. Not huge passing numbers, but he did what he had to do every single game to get it done. And then Chris Alviso, really a newcomer of the year candidate, sophomore stepping in midway through week 1, wasn't even expected to be the starter, and put up put up big time numbers for the Chiefs, and so he missed a game or two with injury, So I really think they've got a bright future, especially on offense with him leading the way.
And then we got Carlton Schmidt from Mason. He's one of the guys that returned from last year. And hey, when you have that and you have Celerio behind you leading the way, you got 5 offensive linemen returned. You're just building you for success.
Right, but Coach McLeod had talked about just what a great leader he is. He steps in and just runs that offense well. And Mason's it's a tricky thing because the quarterback, a lot of times he's just making the right reads and right decisions. They may not show up in the stats, but he obviously did a really great job with them all year.
And then down in Crockett County, Ozona, Hudson Fowler, and then Sutton County, Aaron Segura. Those 2 guys played extremely, extremely well.
Yeah,
I mean, I had seen Hudson Fowler the past couple years. I'm like, man, this kid's gonna be the guy in a couple years, and he played extremely well. And then Segura, for Sonora to lose Butron and everything, and to have somebody step up, young kid, sophomore, and he played very well. I feel he played very well.
Definitely, both those guys deserving for what they did. And dealing with injuries, dealing with heavy graduation. It's not always easy back there. I mean, Ozona had some great weapons, but when Villarreal went down, other guys had to step up. Hudson Fowler kept him going, and then Segura too. I mean, a lot of turnover there. New offense that they're running as well. He stepped in as a sophomore, did a great job.
And then Chasen Doyle from Junction.
Right, same kind of deal, or not putting up huge passing numbers, but did what he had to do. Leading the offense, leading them all season long. He's got 2,000-yard rushers in the backfield. But leading your team to the regional final, leading them to all the historical accomplishments, like I said earlier, he definitely deserved to be on our team.
All right, let's talk about some running backs. We got Christian Villarreal, of course, Tevin Mead, those 2 guys. I know Mead got injured at one point in the year, but he was a difference maker. You went to that Albany game, that Miles Albany game.
Yeah, and he was noticeable because they didn't have that rushing attack that they typically would have had. I would have loved to see Miles at full strength beat Albany. I'm not saying they would have, but I think that it definitely would have been closer. It was tough for them to do it, having to be one-dimensional. But, man, yeah, both those guys, they could put up huge numbers. Both of them had to battle through injuries, but when they were healthy, and those guys were explosive. Villarreal, I mean, that 350-something yard game he had the first week.
I mean,
lit
it up all season.
Yeah. So, two of the most explosive guys in our area for sure.
Right now we have the 2 Junction kids, Aiden Cardwell, Corin Honing.
Yeah. They both had very similar stats, just a true 1-2 punch for Junction back there.
Yep, and then Thomas Llanos from Wall.
Yep,
I think that's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, for all the passing numbers that they did put up when they had to run the ball, he was pretty dang dependable, and he got, I feel like, even better as the season went along. He had a couple really big playoff games, over 200 yards versus Littlefield.
Yep, and who else is Ashton Taylor too? Ashton Taylor. Now there are some guys on this list who you're going to feel like, oh, they should have made it running back. You did factor in their offensive stats, but there's just so many players, and we wanted to represent as many as we could. So sometimes, if you're running back with your linebacker, he might be on there at linebacker instead of running back, but his offensive stats are still on there.
Right. And I think we think like fantasy football, you start plugging them in at quarterback, running back, receiver. But yeah, like Brady, another 1-2 punch with Ashton Taylor and Johnny Minifield, but as good as Johnny Minifield was at running back, he was just as good, if not better, at linebacker, so that's where he ultimately made the team for us.
And then Manny Rojas from Cristobal. He's had a couple of really good seasons. And this year he had another good season.
Yeah, I mean, he carried a lot of offensive load for Cristobal.
And then Pena from Ballinger, too, had a good season for him.
Yeah, definitely. Ballinger's known for their defense this year, but they could run the ball. He had almost 900 rushing yards, and he was definitely a force for them. So he was a big part of their turnaround.
Yep, and we can't forget about the Creek, Sire Garcia. Great season from him.
Yeah, he had a monster year, man. Really, he put up huge rushing yards, tons of 2-point conversions since they never kicked extra points. He was also, doing it as a linebacker as well, and then he had his fullback in front of him. We only had one fullback make the list. I believe it was Josue Arellano, but he was paving the way for him, as well.
I appreciate representing the fullback. There's something about fullbacks, man, that's just they don't get a lot of love. They're like tight ends. They don't get a whole lot of. It's like their positions being phased out, but sometimes you need that blocker back there who can take it and go.
Heck yeah, man. I want to have at least one fullback on my team. And Arellano, he graded out at over 90%. I think 90% as a blocker, so huge part of Grape Creek's ground game.
All right, let's talk about some receivers, man. Cooper Ellison at receiver.
I think that's
incredible. 21 touchdowns.
back-to-back years. He's led us in every category you could as far as catches, yards, touchdowns. You know, whoever's at quarterback, man, just get Cooper Ellison the ball. He puts up big-time numbers.
Yeah, his brother was really good for him too. But
Heck yeah.
But hey, Cooper blew up this year, and I was sad to see them lose in the first round, and part of the reason why I talked to Liam Yancey's dad. I sent him a text after the game, like, man, your son played great, and I will make sure he's on this list because he deserves to be. And Cooper Ellison was a big part of him, of his development.
Oh, heck yeah.
So I feel both those guys are very deserving. Let's talk about Central. Colton Hill went down. I feel like he would have been on this list if he had stayed healthy. But Jimmy Edwards stepped up and kind of came out of nowhere, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe an unsung hero for Central. Of Colton Hill going down. If you'd have told me that heading into the season they're going to lose him in week 2, I'd have been like, oh man, where are they going to get the offense from unless English does everything? And so Jimmy Edwards stepping up, absolutely huge for them. I mean, 10 touchdown catches. I don't know where the offense would have been without him stepping up. So he's one of the best receivers in our area. Deserves to be on here.
Another receiver from the area. When I remember when Miles matched up with him, it was Cooper Ellison and Michael Daniels. And Michael Daniels had a great season. What do you have? 1,100 yards, 1,200, almost 1,200 yards.
Yeah, and I think maybe what's most impressive too is when Villarreal got hurt, he stepped in and had like 600 rushing yards. So true utility back kind of guy that wherever they needed him, he could get it done.
And then another 1,000-yard receiver from south of the Concho Valley was Cam Aguero from Sonora. And that's kind of difficult too because you had Castillo throwing the ball and then you had Seguero throwing the ball. So you have 2 different receivers and you're still putting up 1,000 yards. That's very impressive to me.
Yeah, he was one guy for Sonora. Like with all the people they lost, we knew he was a great receiver. We knew he was going to be somebody they could depend on, and he delivered. So definitely he was a huge part of their team.
And then let's go talk about Lakeview. Braylon White had a great year for him.
Yeah, he was explosive. Him and Francisco Ramirez, both those guys. They had some really good receivers. That was the thing about Lakeview is their offense was definitely not the problem. Man, they could move the ball and they could do it in a hurry. And they bring back a lot of those guys. They'll bring back Alviso at quarterback and White at receiver. So I mean, I really think they have a bright future on offense. They could just short up on defense. It's tough because a lot of their offensive guys are playing on defense too, but they put up numbers, and so they got some great players over there.
Yeah, no, I think they're trending in the right direction. And then we got some wall guys on there. We got Reed Robertson, who had a great season for him. Reed really became that guy for him down the field, I feel, this year.
Yeah, I
Evan
think we all
Bailey,
thought it'd
too,
be
had
Briggs.
a great season.
I mean, Briggs was explosive, and we knew coming in that what a player he was going to be. But Reed was their number 1 receiver. He had the most targets. They went to him on big third downs. Of course, Briggs was an explosive guy.
He did get dinged up though in the season. I feel like that kind of forced Robertson to. It kind of forced all the other guys to step up. Even Kellen Oliver had to step up at one point, and
that's true.
Brian White got in there on defense, on offense sometimes too.
Right. That's true. When Briggs went down, that really let other guys step up, and Evan Bailey as well. He's just a sophomore, and he gets overshadowed because of these other receivers. But I mean, he had some big time playoff games and some big moments, and he'd probably be the number 1 receiver on a lot of our teams around here.
Yeah, but what about Caden Roberts from Junction, man?
Yeah, he was. They didn't pass the ball a lot, but when they did, he was the guy. He made a lot of big plays for them, and he's a great target for them. In the goal line, and so he was the biggest part of their passing game.
I mean, well, yeah, he had 600 yards and 7 touchdowns. So
yeah,
you get down there, throw it up to him.
Heck yeah, man.
There's another guy that threw it up to. We'll get to in a second, though.
Right.
And then Dylan Medina from Miles, of course, had another great season. I mean, just
yeah, almost 700 receiving yards.
Right.
Again, it just gets lost because Cooper Ellison is just the best receiver in the area, but Medina's a great number 2 option for them.
No, I think Miles was just kind of loaded at receiver this year, man. There's so many good ones. Walt was loaded too at receiver. There's so many good ones, and it sucks we can't represent all of them put all of them on this list, but they all contributed to their team's success this year. Let's talk about some tight ends. Bierschwal from Junction. You heard too. Junction apparently just followed out of stands on the radio talking about him and freaking out over Bierschwal from Junction.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's his dad or uncle. One of them was a Bierschwal. One of the announcers was. But there's 3 Bierschwals on our All-COVER1 team, so Bierschwals are representing out there. Yeah, but I think it was Bodie Bierschwal at tight end. Yeah, I mean he had a couple touchdown catches in one of their playoff games. Huge target for them, and the coach told me coming into the year that this guy's a weapon. He's got a big body. He can catch it, and of course he can block as well with what they do in the run game. But man, again, just tons of weapons for Junction, and so glad to have some tight ends on our team. I think we only had 2 actually.
Yeah, Kasner Stribling was the other
And then
one.
Kasner Stribling,
Who stepped up. I mean, when I was getting the clips from y'all, I'm like, man, this guy's a weapon for him. It just, I think maybe Colton Hill going down made not just Jimmy Edwards step up, but Kasner Stribling and all the other receivers step up as well.
Yeah,
hey, we have an
they,
opportunity that we might not have had. We need to develop too. We need to play too, and it really kind of shows you what Central has.
Yeah, I thought they could have got him more involved in the passing game. I mean, I don't know if his blocking was just such a big part of what he did too for them that's maybe that. But when they got him the ball, I mean, he was a playmaker for him. He just didn't get a ton of chances. But first team all district, in that district as a 5th place team, clearly the district coaches thought highly of him to honor him there.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some offensive linemen. They never get as much love as they deserve.
Right.
We'll just start with the wall. You got Emmett Marlott, Reed Ballard, and who was the other guy? Hudson Braden, right?
That's right.
All right. They deserve just as much credit as the entire Wall team. That offensive line step up. That was one thing that Slaughter was really high on every time I spoke to him was how great the offensive line does blocking. He only gave up 1 sack all season.
Right. Those 3 guys, they graded out over 95%. They're bringing back 3 of their offensive linemen as well. So, I mean, everybody better watch out for Wall with all the weapons they got coming back next year, especially on offense. But, yeah, 3 Wall linemen, I mean, all three of them, I mean, what can you say? Those numbers are ridiculous. And it's tough with linemen because they don't have the great stats, but 95% grade blocking, my gosh.
Well, it's also tough because they just don't have their pancake blocks and everything. And you kind of have to be there to see it, or otherwise you're looking at numbers.
Right.
And when you're watching, you have to be watching the offensive line. And when you're out there getting clips, you've got to follow the football. You got to watch the football. So it's hard to focus on the offensive line if you're working the game. That was one thing I kind of had to tell parents when I first started filming was, like, oh, you remember when we ran this play? I'm like, not really. I can't really focus on what play they're running. I have to watch the ball. So the offensive line gets lost, but I'm glad they're represented here. Central's offensive lineman, Uta Kalamafoni, made the list as well. I think he made the list the first year too. Just a great player for him.
Yeah, him and Chase Cole, both first team all district guys, and then Lakeview, Henry.
Wyatt Henry.
He's a lineman that I noticed out there, which was just saying something. But I mean, you just see him out there, he's a big guy, and you just see him lifting up guys after they score, and he's just somebody that jumped off the field at me, and then too, once he wasn't there, when he got hurt right before district started, that's when their offense really started struggling. I mean, it was a huge part of what they did. So I don't recall if he's a senior or not, but
he is a senior.
Yeah, so that's a tough loss for them,
But going on to another senior, Grape Creek, Arellano.
Yeah, another guy with big numbers. And again, Grape Creek, they're an old school offense. They just run, and so their best lineman, their fullback, though they're a big part of what they did. You just see Sire Garcia's name all the time, but those blockers are a big part of what they did.
Well, Tanner too was always somebody who was past couple of years. He's been the guy. Hey man, Sire Garcia, he's the guy for us, and he was. John Preston Parrish from Mason, Ryland Todd from Mason.
Yeah,
it's hard not to talk about. Like I said, they returned 5. They had a 2,300-yard rusher. Of course, their offensive line did their job.
Right. We knew coming in with 5 first-team all-district linemen returning, they were going to be good, and they were. And so they lived up to their expectations. They did everything we thought. I kind of hope they make a little better playoff run maybe. But Mason had a great offense like we knew they would. And
that's a competitive region they're in.
It is.
Though. You have Refugio and Ganado coming out of there. You're getting up against some dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk also Cannon Rabin from Mason as well. Sergio Ochoa from Junction. That was another guy that's on here.
Yeah, he was the lineman of the year in their district.
And Marco Ponce.
Yeah, and they're both 4-year starters, so
all right.
That's pretty impressive.
And they did their job this year. And then our last offensive lineman, Avilio Fraga from Reagan County.
Right. Again, I think Reagan County, with what they did, going 9-2, winning their first district title in 31 years, weren't even in the playoffs the year before. So an incredible run. It kind of gets overshadowed by some of the great teams we had, but But Reagan County had some great players as well.
I do want to say we did miss Nick Franklin on offense, receiver.
Yeah, there you go.
He as a sophomore, he made the first time when I did this list, he made it as an athlete. Just blew off the page at me. Just great numbers and another great player. Let's talk about some defensive guys real fast. Let me scroll down here real fast. Colton Kelly from Miles is our defensive line. DeMarcus Reed from Brady, Nasir Menafield, and Brayan Sandoval. Talk about Menafield. I want to talk about Menafield. What is he? I think he's a sophomore this year. He's 350 pounds.
Yes.
Just a mountain out there.
Right. With him and DeMarcus Reed, I mean, those are two imposing guys. And then you got Johnny Menafield cleaning up stuff behind him. So Brady's defense was awesome. They got 3 guys on there.
And Jerry Roberts is a defensive guy.
Yeah. Kelly for Miles. He's a big. I think he's 6'5", 240. We got some real size on our All-COVER1 defensive line for sure. And then Brayan Sandoval, another first-team All-District guy for Central.
And Colt Floyd from Cristobal, Owen
Right.
Jones from Sonora, Aben Ochoa from Ballinger, Jason Santiano. There's everybody. That's it threw me off. Sorry. Great players all around, man.
Yeah, man. When you say all the names, I mean, our defensive line is definitely one of the strengths of our team.
Well,
over
Lane
here.
Stansberry made it too, and he
Right.
was just all over the place for him. I remember I asked Coach Guy about him when he came in. When we talked about have him come in for the weeks. He's like, man, Stansberry stepped up for him big time, and he did not. I mean, he's a defensive lineman. He's a receiver for him too. Like
Right.
just all over the place for him. Great.
And a kicker.
And kicker. You're right. And kicker. Yep. Weston Scandalori from Wall, defensive lineman.
Yeah. So ultimately, I guess 3 of their defensive linemen made the team. Which, if you saw them play and you saw what they did to offenses, you would definitely agree.
Let's talk about some linebackers. Clancy Osborne, great name for a linebacker, by the way. Mason.
Yep, he was an All-State guy last year. We knew he was going to be one of the best. Coach McLeod talked about him a lot. I believe we had 2 Mason linebackers on there.
Yeah, Fisher Bradley.
Yeah, both those guys McLeod was really high on heading into the year, and those guys were huge. Mason had one of our best defenses in the area, as they always do.
Well, let's keep talking about Mason Van Sickle from Central.
Man, that kid's awesome. I love watching him play. You always saw him around the ball. He was a captain for them, and he was always one of the best players on the field. Man, it was really fun watching him.
Man, well, you went to a lot of their games.
Yeah, I saw most of their games.
How did he jump off the page at you? What did he do specifically that kind of made you think, man, this kid can play?
He was always in on the tackle. I guess was the biggest thing. It just seemed like every single time he was there. Just always saw Mason Van Sickle around the ball. So, I mean, I think that was the biggest thing is anytime the pile's there he was getting off the ball carrier,
Right, and then Jalen Torres from Miles did everything for him out there, man. He was
the defensive MVP of that district, and that's a tough district with Albany. But, yeah, he was a great player for them.
And then we got Johnny Menafield, of course.
Yep.
He's been the linebacker for him. He made the team as a sophomore, over 100 tackles. I think he was the first team linebacker that first year we did this as a sophomore, and he's just continued to grow. And he was the guy this year out there at Brady.
Yeah, he really was on both sides of the ball. He was literally would lead them in offense and defense every single game. So, I mean, just incredible for what he's doing out there at a 3A school to be the best player on both sides of the ball.
And then Garrett Guy made the team as well. Over 140 tackles, something like that.
Yeah, he had over 100 tackles. Just a rock solid kind of steady presence in the middle for them, and just another key player on one of the best defenses we've had in a long time.
I think Mikowitz had leader of the tackles, and then Garrett Guy came up number 2 in tackles. Just great. Brian Gonzalez from Junction, Crew Levin from Junction. Both those guys made it as linebackers. What do you say about those guys?
Well, Junction had a great defense, only allowing 12 points a game, and Gonzalez, I don't recall if he was All-State or not. I knew heading into the year that he was a big name for them. Had over 100 tackles last year. He was expected to be the leader, and he definitely was. And then Crew, he had over 100 tackles as well. So, I mean, you got just 2 great linebackers there in the defense. That's why they were so good.
And let's talk about some DBs real fast. Cason Brown, I don't feel like he had to be on this list.
Yeah, he's a weird player because, heading into the year, I thought of him mostly as a quarterback, I guess. Well, really, I guess more than anything, I almost thought of him as a basketball player.
Yeah.
But great quarterback. He threw for over 5,000 yards in his career there. But safety is where he's going to play in college, and the college interest just kept building and building. Commits to Texas State, then he ends up signing with Arizona. At the end of the year, Noah's numbers don't jump off the page, but we don't have anybody else going
Signing with D1 schools like that.
No, so he had to lead our secondary for sure.
And I liked what Coach Brown said out there when he signed. He said it can happen in Big Lake, and he said, and one thing also was Kaysen didn't specialize. He said his track numbers were important, basketball was important, everything you do is important. So the best way to get noticed by these colleges is playing every sport at the highest level you can and taking it seriously and being that, or young man or young woman. I'm going to say football because it's everything. Everybody can, if it can happen in Big Lake where you wouldn't think a lot of players are coming out of, it can happen anywhere.
Right.
And then Zayden Norton from Central.
Yeah, man, he was one of their captains, and I feel like he got better and better as the year went on. He became more and more of a shutdown corner. He had a knack for making big interceptions and big moments for them. It seemed like when I look back on the season, he had some of the bigger moments I'm kind of remembering. So, no, he didn't get first team all district, but I saw the kid play all year, and he was a captain for a reason. Coach Smith thought highly of him, and I think he deserved a spot on our team.
All right, and then we got a couple Bierschwals coming in.
Heck yeah, man. They put up good numbers in the secondary. I can't keep track of them all. Bierschwal is enough.
Brock Bierschwal had 64 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 he returned for a touchdown, and then Coder Bierschwal had 91 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble. You're doing all that from the defensive back position, which is impressive. Grant Simon from Junction made it as well.
Yeah, gosh, he had an interception return for a touchdown in one of their playoff wins. Man, Junction, at the end of the day, they end up getting 5 or 6 guys on our team just from their defense.
But... Yeah, there's a reason Scott Freeman was one of our co-coaches of the year, I remember we kind of said, well, you kind of just de facto slaughter, but then we're like, hang on now, there's some, I remember we had discussions about it, and we just ultimately decided to put them both on there. He had a loaded team, and Freeman took him and deserved a spot as one of our coaches, and all the players he has on this list just kind of solidifies that.
Yeah, and definitely, just a couple years ago, they didn't even win a district game, so just what
they were down for a while,
turnaround
too.
for them. Yeah, they're out there on the fringe. They get kind of forgotten about, and they don't have the same name power of the Walls and Masons of the world, but they this was their chance, and they delivered really on about as well as you could have hoped, going all the way to the regional final.
And then Brayson Brock from El Dorado.
Yeah, another guy. I believe he had 5 interceptions, and El Dorado kind of had a little bit of an underrated defense. You look back at their schedule, and then they limited the Miles and Sonoras and Ozonas of the world more than you'd think. So, they don't immediately jump off as one of the best defenses you're thinking, but they really did have a pretty good defense out there. And the only 2 times they really got kind of routed was when they played, I believe, Ira Ann and Wink maybe. So he put up pretty good numbers for them. Earned him a spot on our team.
And then Kaysen Rogers, Levi King, one was Central, Wall, of course.
Yeah, first team all-district guy for Central, and then Levi King. Really, I would hear him on the off chance that Wall ever punted was when I would hear him, but he put up good numbers in their secondary as well.
Speaking of punting, we have some special teamers. Evan Vaughn from Central. You were there at a lot of those games, man. Talk about...
Well, there's only so many guys in our area kicking 50-yarders, and he kicked a 50-yarder for Central at the end of the first half. Another time he kicked a 43-yarder on the last play of the first half. So he was reliable for him. Randomly shaky on extra points every now and then, but he hit some big kicks when they needed to, and he had the leg to not just hit clutch kicks, but long kicks. So he deserved a spot on there. And then Junction's kicker, Estrada. 8 of 10 on field goals. That's awesome at the 2A Division II level. That's a huge luxury to have a kicker like that. And one of their playoff wins, he went 4 for 4 on field goal tries, so he was clutch as well.
Man, it's so important. Yeah, you were at the Cristobal Fall City game a few years back, and I remember watching that game thinking if Cristobal had a kicker, they probably would have won that game. I don't know why I thought that, because it was more than a 3-point spread at the end. But if Cristobal had the kicker, they probably. I just kept thinking they'd win this game.
Yeah, well, they lost that game by 9, and so at the end, that was a huge deal when a touchdown drive wouldn't have been able to put it in overtime, But at that level, you just hope to have a somewhat competent kicker. You don't expect, at the smallest level of 11-man football, to have that good of a kicker. So
I just think
Stroud
Fall
was
City,
awesome.
their quarterback was their kicker
Right.
that year. So if your kid can throw the ball and he wants to be a quarterback, might as well put him out there as kicker too. Kill two birds with one stone.
Seriously, and then great at fakes, and that was a big difference in the Wall Gunter game. Is Gunter just had that absolute weapon out there that could have kicked
Preston
him.
Tarpley can get it done, man.
Yeah, anytime they get across midfield, if a drive stalls, he's got the capability of hitting a 50-yarder. So and longer, really.
And they did too, So, and I remember the kickoffs were going out the back. I know there's kind of wind data, but going out the back of the end zone, it's so important, And I'm not dogging on any players because Crutchfield, the kicker that stepped up, the freshman, he just kind of got thrown in when Stansbury went down against Littlefield, and he did a great job for him.
Right. By any measure, Wall had a good kicking game.
Right.
That Gunter guy was just a different level. He's going to be a Division I kicker someday.
I was just thinking, and Wall, that first drive, kicking into the wind, and and the way ACU's kind of set up the bowl, it was kind of open that end, and they had the scoreboard on the other end, and it's like, just one of those things that, put him out there, get him in kicking school, and I'm sure it's a thing. It's a thing. Maybe east of I-35. Garrett Walling from El Dorado is our punter.
Yeah, he averaged like 58 yards a punt. He had a long of 76. I think he had 10 punts down inside the 20. So, I mean, those are about as good as punting numbers as I've seen in a long time. So, punter is probably the least glamorous spot on our team, especially if we're so talented we probably wouldn't have to punt. But if we did, he will flip field position for us.
Well, that's important too.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about kicking being important. So is punting.
Yeah.
If you can't get out of your end zone and you can put them on the other, 40, at least you got them that far. So that's so important than, having, sometimes punt, at just these small schools that punt goes 20 yards. And,
Right.
It's just, I kind of feel like the UIL has something to do with it too because they limited practice so much and you can't have two days back to back through August and everything. So I just feel like they've kind of limited that as well. And you just kind of have to fit it in where you can. And it's so important, having all three phases of the game playing well. And just to prove it, looking at Gunter and State, they scored 2 offensive touchdowns. They had 2 special teams touchdowns. So that just shows how important special teams is.
Definitely.
And then let's talk about our return guy. He finally made the list somewhere after being all over the field, all over offense and defense. Briggs Jones. What can you say about him, man? He's just probably one of the fastest kids in the area.
Probably so. Definitely one of the most dynamic kids we got. He went to the state track meet in 3 events last year. It's easy to envision this guy being awesome in the spread offense, and he was. He was one of the best receivers in the area. To me, he's one of the best defensive backs in the area. Whatever his interception totals were, I kind of add one in my head because it got called back for a penalty, and I know it should have been. But ultimately, too, I saw him have some great returns for touchdowns. He had a punt return down the sideline right in front of me at one game I was at, and so he's was as loaded as our team is. I wouldn't mind finding a spot for him just at kick returner, and we could spread the wealth elsewhere because he could have been on this team in three different places probably. I mean, heck, anytime they put him in the backfield, he was a threat to take a reverse 70 yards for a touchdown.
How
But
many
kick return's a
times
good
did
spot.
he do that, though? How many times did he just catch it and go? I can think of probably 4 times just off the top of my head where he just caught a screen and took it
Right.
and just outran everybody.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Wherever he is, just get him the ball, and he's a threat to take it to the house on any play.
All right, now we got some utility back. Francisco Ramirez, Isaiah Rios, Seth Turner, Caden Struby, Jarrett Brown, Chris Johnson, Brayley Woods, Daniel Anchondo, Dylan Ford, J.C. Galindo. That kid kept jumping off the page at me too.
He did. He's
Just everywhere. Eliza Hernandez, Ethan Bush.
And so I don't think utility back should be overlooked. It's easy to they're on the special teams utility section, but like a lot of these guys, it's really a badge of honor to me that they were good everywhere. Some of these guys, like Isaiah Rios for Lakeview, for instance, he was first team all district in 3 different positions: punter, kicker, and running back, where he wasn't even the starter until Sammy Ramirez got hurt. But some of these guys, they just kind of do it. Maybe not one spot are they shining, but they do something in the running game. They do something in the receiving game. Then on defense, they're making plays. And on special teams, so to me, a utility back is a great Swiss Army knife kind of guy that you want those guys on your team. You want a guy that can kind of fill in wherever you need. So any utility back spot, I think it's a badge of honor to have that title, really.
All right, and we'll be right back after this message from Jim Bass Ford.
Right now at Jim Bass, scan our QR code and find great deals on cars and trucks. Right now, you can get $11 grand in total savings on all remaining 2024 Ford F-150s in stock.
You can only get deals like this at Jim Bass Ford, Houston Hart and Arden Road, or 24/7 at bassbus.com, or you can use this QR code right here. It's on the other side, isn't it?
All right, Paul, was there anybody that you wanted on this list that maybe didn't make the list, or was anybody that you thought deserved a spot or was right there on the line of yes and no?
Maybe. You know, it's always tough. There's a lot of deserving guys. Some guys' injury knocks them out. There's probably some guy that got overlooked, that maybe the stats didn't reflect it, and we don't know just how important he was to the team. I mean, I'm sure the coaches could tell me some of the guys that were missed or whatever. It's open for argument for sure. You know, these teams aren't an exact science, and there's no exact line. It's not like, well, 1,000 yards or nothing to make our team. So
yeah, we're San Angelo Live. We're a little. We don't want to cheapen the list and make it where it's a participation trophy, but we'll fudge it around and give you a spot here and there.
Just tried any kids that were deserving. Tried to get the best kids on there. Tried to represent our towns and our teams and all that. And it's always tough, but it's also a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite things to do. And we still got the 6-man team coming up next, so we'll try to get that out in the coming days and honor our 6-man guys.
Yeah, no knife fights in the office over this one. The first time we did, there were some disagreements and arguments that I just had to concede on, and I'm upset I did because I spent all that money on those dog tags, and well, anyway.
Sometimes you have to have a knife fight to get the.
Hey man, yeah, you're. Hey, sometimes you just have to. You just have to sometimes. But Paul, did you want to add anything else? I mean, congratulations to everybody who made the list, and congratulations to our MVP, our offensive MVP, defensive MVPs, newcomer, coaches. Congratulations to every offensive member, defensive member, and honorable mention. Y'all had great seasons this year, and I had fun covering y'all this year. Paul, I mean, you went to a lot of games this year after not going to any games last year.
Right. No, it was great to be back out there, and it was a great season, really. I mean, every season you don't know exactly what's going to happen, and man, it's football. At any point, injuries can happen and derail a season or whatever, but other guys step up, and that's just part of it. But I thought our teams had a great season. We had some great playoff runs. It was a lot of fun. 11-man and 6-man. I'm looking forward to honoring our 6-man because we had some great teams. Water Valley, Robert Lee, Richland Springs, Menard. There were some great teams out there, and so I'm looking forward to, honoring those guys too.
I mean, you can't talk about West Texas without talking about 6-man football.
Heck yeah.
All right, man. But this has been Cover 1 for today. For James Bouligny and Paul Harris, or for Paul Harris, I'm James Bouligny, and we'll talk to you for 6-man. All right, everybody, the hunt for the holidays is still going on. It's the Gold Eagle coin is out there somewhere in San Angelo. Clue 1 has been up for about a week. Of course, that led you to where it needed to lead you to, and if you picked up some word search, hopefully you're working hard on that. I gave you some time to kind of figure that out. Now, clue number 2 is up on San Angelo Live, and we'll show it here in a second. I do have to thank Cano's Diamonds and Coins, located 1016 West Beauregard. For all your jewelry needs, go to Cano's Diamonds and Coins, and here's a quick word from Cano's.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Cano's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Cano's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Cano stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Cano's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
And thank you for watching the Live Daily News Show, the only locally owned news show in the Concho Valley. Go like us on Facebook, X, and other social media platforms, and download the San Angelo Live mobile app to stay up to date with news from in and around the Concho Valley. Thanks again.